Okay, let's dive in. We've got a specific mission today. We want to take this particular stack of recent news headlines, the ones you've gathered from various global sources.
Right, like a snapshot from the wire today.
Exactly. And our goal is to unpack the key details, sort of guide you through it.
Help you see the connections.
Yeah, and get a quick, informed grasp of what's being reported globally, but based only on the specific material we have in front of us.
Precisely. It's about navigating this particular information landscape. We're not, trying to cover absolutely everything.
No.
But seeing what stories pop up in this collection and what they might be telling us.
Okay, so where do we start? Looks like global economic and trade tensions are a big theme here.
Definitely. Seems like a good place to jump in. Especially the U.S.-China relationship. It keeps coming up.
It really does. Bloomberg, for instance, has this piece about President Trump wanting to talk to Xi Jinping.
Yeah, right after accusing China of breaking a trade deal, wasn't it?
That's the one. That high-level friction, it really sets the stage, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And what's striking is how that political tension seems to translate almost immediately into legal and economic moves.
You mean the tariffs?
Exactly. Several sources here, Reuters, NBC News, Al Jazeera, France 24, they all picked up on a U.S. appeals court ruling about Trump's tariffs.
Okay, right. So the court basically allowed the tariffs to continue, for now anyway.
Temporarily, yes.
Yeah.
NBC News had the date they stay in place until at least June 9th.
Giving the government time to file a motion, defending their legality.
Al Jazeera sort of framed it as a temporary legal win for that aggressive tariff strategy, as they put it.
And France 24 added an important detail there.
Oh, yeah. What is that?
That these duties in this ruling context aren't just on China. Their report says they apply to other trading partners, too.
Ah, okay. So the scope is potentially wider. That's crucial context.
So the legal fight goes on, but the tariffs stay for now. Interesting, then, how Bloomberg noted the market reaction.
Right. Markets actually bounced a bit.
Yeah, just on speculation that the U.S. and China might ease restrictions. Just the hope, it seems.
It just shows you, doesn't it, how tuned in global markets are to even whispers of de-escalation between these two.
Definitely. But there's more friction reported here, too, still on U.S.-China.
The visas.
Yeah. NBC News reporting the U.S. government plans to, quote, aggressively revoke visas for Chinese students, the ones with alleged ties to the Chinese Communist Party.
And wasn't there a related point in the CNN summary about Harvard graduates?
Yes, exactly. They're lawyers fighting this specific visa ban. So it's not just policy talk. It's hitting individuals, sparking legal fights.
Absolutely. Now, we sort of pivot slightly, but stay with China's global role. Al Jazeera and France 24 had this fascinating piece.
What's that?
About debt repayments. China's apparently said to receive record amounts back from developing nations.
Wow. So a shift from being this, huge lender
to becoming a major debt collector. That's how the sources frame it.
What are the implications of that, do you think, based on these reports?
Well, it could change the dynamics, right? Different kinds of leverage, perhaps. It's a snapshot of a changing global financial picture, at least according to these outlets.
So trade disputes, tariffs, legal fights, visas, shifting debt roles. It's a really complex picture of ongoing tension just from this batch of news.
It really is. Multifaceted. Okay, so maybe we should shift gears now.
Yeah, let's do that, because this collection also has a lot on some really intense conflict zones and humanitarian crises.
It certainly does. Where to begin? Maybe Israel and Palestine? Reuters and The Guardian both have pieces on settlement expansion.
In the occupied West Bank, right. Reuters described it as the largest expansion in years.
That's right. And The Guardian reported Palestinian officials calling it a dangerous escalation.
And adding to that tension, the Reuters U.S. summary mentioned Israeli forces killing a third Palestinian in the West Bank within 24 hours.
And these actions, they feed right into the humanitarian situation, especially in Gaza. Al Jazeera and France 24 painted a pretty grim picture there.
How so?
Well, Al Jazeera reported that less than 5% of Gaza's cropland can even be cultivated now. Damage, access restrictions.
Which just makes the famine risk even worse, obviously.
Exactly. And France 24 had that really stark UN warning, calling Gaza the least safe place on earth for aid workers.
Just devastating detail.
Yeah. And then South China Morning Post had a specific military claim, too.
Which was?
The Israeli army saying it killed Mohammed Sinwar, who they presume is Hamas's chief in Gaza. So another reported event in that complex situation.
Okay, let's move to the Russia-Ukraine reports then. Reuters carried a Russian claim.
about repelling a massive drone attack.
Yeah, over 100 drones, they said, targeting infrastructure near Moscow. A huge number.
And BBC Russia had some analysis on the fighting itself, suggesting the Russian advance in the northeast might be about creating a buffer zone.
An interpretation of their strategy, okay.
But interestingly, despite that reported drone attack, BBC Russia also said the Kremlin's insisting on sticking to a 3-day ceasefire plan.
Though Ukraine is skeptical, the report noted.
Understandably, perhaps. It's all very fraught. Conflicting claims, proposed actions.
And what about other countries' involvement mentioned here?
Yes. Germany. Both SEMP and BBC Russia reported on Germany committing to help Ukraine build long-range missiles.
Right. SEMP said that move's expected to escalate tensions.
While BBC Russia saw it more as signaling, deeper military cooperation, slightly different takes on the implications.
And The Guardian threw in an analyst's view, something about former President Trump potentially putting pressure on Putin if peace doesn't progress.
Yeah, a bit of analysis mixed in with the event reporting. It's quite a mix in these sources.
It is. And beyond those two major conflicts, there were glimpses of other crises too, weren't there, in the Al-Africa reports?
Yes, indeed. A UN expert urging an end to attacks on civilian infrastructure in Sudan. Alarm about drone strikes, the conflict widening there.
Grim stuff. And also, from Al-Africa, that chilling report from Mali.
Oh, yeah. 22 men found dead after military arrests. Reports suggesting summary executions by soldiers.
Just awful. These headlines really remind you of crises happening beyond the ones dominating the biggest news cycles.
Absolutely. Okay, maybe shifting back to the U.S., there were domestic updates, too.
Yeah.
Economic and legal.
Right. Bloomberg mentioned the Federal Reserve signaling possible interest rate cuts.
Trying to stabilize the economy, they said, with all the inflation concerns.
Something a lot of people are watching, for sure. And on the legal front.
NDTV reported a big Supreme Court ruling, allowing President Trump to revoke parole status for certain migrants.
And they specified who's affected?
Yes. Thousands of Venezuelan, Cuban, Haitian, and Nicaraguan migrants, according to that report. Revoking parole changes their legal footing significantly.
Huge impact for those individuals.
Definitely. And FIX News' summary added another Supreme Court ruling, an 8-0 vote limiting judges' power in environmental cases.
So two quite different but high-impact decisions from the court based on these reports.
Exactly. Now, moving beyond those major geopolitical and economic stories, there were quite a few other sort of notable global headlines scattered in this pile.
Like what?
Well, The Guardian reported UK police charging a man over that crash at the Liverpool soccer parade, where a vehicle went into the crowd.
I remember reading about that incident, a public safety angle there.
And NDTV noted Pakistan planning to upgrade ties with Afghanistan, sending an ambassador soon, apparently just days after China made similar outreach to the Taliban.
Interesting diplomatic moves in that region.
Also from NDTV, the death of the French scientist Etienne-Emile Baulieu.
The inventor of the abortion pill at 98. A significant figure.
Yeah. And SCMP had an update on Andrew and Tristan Tate.
The influencers. What's the latest there?
Facing rape and trafficking charges now in the UK, and they'll be extradited once their case in Romania wraps up. That story keeps developing across borders.
It does. And what else? There was a health story from Africa, too.
Yes. Quite a serious one. South Africa's HIV crisis worsening among older people. The proportion over 50 with HIV has apparently doubled in a decade.
Doubled? Wow. That's a really concerning demographic shift in a long-running crisis.
It really highlights how these health challenges evolve. And finally, amidst all this serious news,
there's even some sports.
It's a quick hit from NBC News on the French Open. Top seeds, Sabalenka and Musetti advanced.
Right. Dominating their matches to get to the fourth round. A little glimpse of normalcy, I suppose.
Yeah, maybe. So, okay, looking back at this whole collection we've just picked through.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot. Intricate global trade stuff, legal battles over terrorists.
Reports from active war zones, the awful humanitarian fallout.
Key domestic legal rulings in the U.S. impacting immigration, the environment.
Plus all those other global bits, diplomatic shifts, cross-border crime cases, public safety, science obituaries, public health crises.
Even tennis results.
Right.
And I think the value of doing this, of focusing just on this batch of sources, is you see how quickly you can pull out key info and spot connections across this really diverse global news flow.
It definitely leaves you with a lot to think about. Looking just at this snapshot, we've discussed the specific myths of trade disputes, actual wars, human suffering, court decisions, everyday life moments like sports. What does this particular collection tell you, the listener, about the current state of the world?
How interconnected is it all? Or maybe how disconnected sometimes.
Exactly. How do these seemingly separate events relate, if they do, in the bigger picture? It's definitely something to chew on as you take in the news every day.